I'm Marcus Barnes, and I'm here for Speaker's Corner hosted by Take Note. I'm joined by a living legend. I think he's a bit too humble to take that title, but I'm going to give it to him. Laurent Garnier. I'm not going to give you any more of an intro than that because I just think everyone is aware of, like, you know, how much you've achieved and what a, you know, special artist you are. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for giving us some of your time. It's really nice to be sat here about to chat with you. And what I wanted to start with was your film, which I saw very recently.
The documentary. Documentary.
Yes, documentary. What was the trigger behind getting that started? You know, did it come up in conversation, or, you know, how did this sort of idea for it come about?
It's kind of two different triggers. One was by being approached by a lot of different people in France to actually make a documentary. And if I have to open the door, you know, my door here, the house and my life, I need to be confident with the person. And I guess all the other people who approached me before, I didn't like their ideas. I mean, since the beginning, I've said, you know, doing a documentary on me, myself, and I don't find that very interesting at all. I think there's much more things to say about the techno world, and even though, you know, it comes across my life, I think there's much more to say, and it's much more interesting to be treating about other subjects than just myself. So I didn't like their approach. So I actually approached myself, Gabin, which is the director of this documentary. But before that, that's why I kind of corrected you when you said film, because I've released a book called Electroshock.
Yes.
About 13 years ago, I think, something like that, 14 years ago. And hang on, je suis en plein Zoom. Sorry, my boy's coming in. Oh. He's going to the supermarket, all right?
Oh, no.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Saying that, yes, I've released a book, and then after that, I've been approached by a company in France, like a small film company, who wanted to make a movie, a fiction about the book. Yeah. And we kind of worked together for about 9-10 years. I'm going to cut a very long story short, but I felt at one point that I was not going to go anywhere with that company in France. It was going to be difficult and stuff. And the fact that I've been crossing so much shit through the film industry, especially in France, we can't say they are very nice people. A lot of them think about themselves and about their, it's a very different world than the music business, luckily for us. And I kind of got a bit sick with all this. So the idea at first, when I approached Gabin, I said, listen, I'm supposed to make that film, but I really don't know if I'm going to get to do it. And the angle I find quite interesting would be to start to document this really hard work with the movie and document it as me as an artist trying to do something which is not in my normal work, set of work. And what would be interesting is to see how far I go with this story. If I get to do the film, it would be nice to stop the documentary just the first day we say action. But if I don't get to do the film, it would be interesting to see how I actually fall you know, because it would have been something very hard. And I thought the actual creative process would have been very interesting to follow me and see how I survive after all this.
Yeah, right.
So that was the beginning of the idea of the documentary. And then, of course, things moved on. And I actually, at one point, I actually left France with my film scenario and the idea of a documentary. And I went to England and I met Julien from Futuristic Film. And Julien said, I take both projects. I like both projects. So Julien actually switched things around and decided we should do the documentary first, because I believe the documentary should be able to help in making the film.
Nice.
So the idea was first to do the film because it was the first idea that came a long time ago. And then the documentary kind of came in, and we had the first idea for the documentary. And then by the fact of meeting Julien and changing things around, we kind of changed as well the scenario of the documentary. And sorry, it's a bit of a long story, but this is how everything came together. And basically I approached Gabin 4 years ago saying to him, you know, there's an idea of a documentary. Would you be into, you know, shall we talk together? Because I love the way you film music. I love the poetry you have when you film music, because he's not a techno guy. He doesn't know anything about techno. And he's more like somebody who likes French songs and stuff like that.
Sure.
So he's got a different way of filming things, and he didn't know anything about the story of techno. So I thought it was very interesting to actually tell him the story, and he would use all the material to make a story with this.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we went to England, we met Julien, and we already had a lot of images because we've been working with Gabin for 2 years before that. He's been following me. So we had already a lot of material, and we kind of, you know, narrowed the story down and got some kind of a scenario for the documentary, and we followed that, and we did whatever you saw.
Well, what I saw was the result is excellent. Really, really good. And it's
make
like
any sense in what I was saying to you?
it made total sense. It made total sense.
It's a long story to explain, but thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I really did. And you know, the thing is, having seen you play so often and been a fan of yours for a long time and enjoyed your music and everything, it was really nice to be allowed into your life and into your history and to see your personal photos, you know, just yeah. Like something as lovely as that, you know, like pictures of you in your youth and your family, and like, you know, behind the scenes and stuff, and you with all of the wider sort of electronic music community. It really adds like such a personal touch. And I wanted to ask you how it felt for you to allow us, the viewers, into your life to that extent.
I think when you're an artist, it's always up to you to what you show, what you don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes artists are saying, "Oh, I've got people know too much about me." At the end of the day, I think it's your decision to what you filter. I've always been very careful to keep my private life private, quite private, and to keep my more, you know, DJ and well-known life where it's at. With the team I'm working with, we've been very careful with that, trying to give a little bit, because I think people like that as well, as much as I like to get information from the artist I love. I know what I like to get. Yeah. When I'm looking for, you know, seeing a biography, I love to see special pictures, as you say. But again, you have to keep some private things, you know, and I think it's very important to be well surrounded with the right team, that everybody can help you out to make sure that you give, but you don't give everything, and you don't give things you shouldn't give. So everything in the documentary, it felt very normal, and I was very happy to share, because we're coming back to working with Gabin, the director. When I approached him, I said to him again what I said to you: if I open my door, I need to feel trusted, and I need to be in trust with the person.
Yeah.
and I already worked with Gabin before on different projects because I co-organize a pop rock festival where I live, and Gabin is making all the after movies. So I saw his work.
Yeah.
We worked together without having projects together.
Yeah.
Closely together. And I saw the way he was working, and I guess he saw the way I was working, and we kind of met each other, and we felt nice with each other. And when I approached him, we already were a little bit of friends, and a bit of my own life. He saw a bit of my own life because, I co-organize this festival with my wife, and my friends, the guys I'm doing it with, their wives are involved as well. So it's like a small community already.
Yeah.
And I said to Gabin, if I have to, I won't make 5 documentaries. So if I do, I make one. And if we do one, we need to go quite deep.
Yeah.
And again, for me to give you everything I can give you to make the best documentary we can, I need to be I need to trust you. And Gabin is a very there's a great word in France saying bienveillant. He's somebody who's looking well after you. And he always said to me, I will double check with you that you're okay with these pictures, with his images and stuff. He's been very humble, very nice. And that's it. So I felt completely like working with a family. So it felt kind of normal to letting him in and do the film we did. So there's no problem here at all.
What I was really taken with was your passion, like from day one till now. That passion just is completely unwavering. It's so solid, and it's a wonderful thing to see, because you've been present in so many different pivotal moments in electronic music. Going right back to like pre-rave, which I think maybe some of the younger generation might not be aware of. And it's great that you're able to tell the story of that timeline as well through your own experience. Not just in your home country, but in London and Manchester as well, which are like obviously very important cities for the development of the music.
For sure. And I love we have very good guests as well. Some of them that perhaps the young generation might not know, but when you hear Dave Aslam talking about Manchester, the way he explains it all, it makes so much sense. And we need, I really wanted that depth as well in a documentary. It's not just about the music, the joy, the fun, and whatever. I like to, I always thought the moment where house arrived in England, I always thought the social, the political aspect of it had as well helped the scene to become what it was, and Dave explains it brilliantly. He wrote amazing books and stuff, and it was very important for me to have people like that in a documentary.
Yeah, man. Hey, I think it's also really great that you mentioned that at the Hacienda, before there was this big rave revolution, that the dance floor was predominantly black, which again, like people might not necessarily be aware of.
Very true. It's true. The first year when I arrived in Manchester, there was only one night where they were playing house music. It was Friday night, and the DJs were they were called MP2. There was Mike Pickering and another guy, and I can't remember his name, but I think his letters were MP as well. And this is where I discovered house music. There was one radio show in Manchester by a guy called, I think it was Stu Allen. It was playing house music. There was one record shop called Spinnin' where you could get the records, but man, it was difficult because those records were coming 4 at a time from Chicago, and of course they were keeping them for the DJs, and I wasn't DJ back then, so every time I was ringing the shop, it's, did you get Love Can't Turn Around? Yes, you better come quick, and then you just drive an hour and you get there. It's like, no, it's gone, sorry mate. So it was difficult to get the records. But coming back to Hacienda, Friday night was a predominantly black night, and those guys were there to dance, to have like proper dance battles. And you were not injecting yourself in a circle like that. You couldn't do that, Especially because I didn't have the right moves, and it was like quite primal and very testosterone, and it was very interesting. It was fun. It was a really good night, and I remember that very well. And yeah, it was a black thing at the beginning for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's funny actually. I've over the last couple of years, I've done a bit of writing about what was going on in a kind of like the pre-rave era in the UK, and this culture of dancing, of actual dancers and dance battles, and people that were actually famous for being like very good at dancing on the club scene, is again something that's quite underreported. And I was really interested in trying to investigate that, and possibly even like writing like a big article or a book about it, because again, like it's something that's not necessarily that well known, but was very important to the development of the culture that we know now.
It was huge, and I think even during the Northern Soul days,
Yes.
you had the DJs who were hiding their records and were playing records that nobody could have, but then again, you had the king of the dance floors, and it happened during disco as well.
Yeah.
It's funny if you watch like old disco movies, there's always the guy who's dressing up and dances like crazy, and people stop and look at Saturday Night Fever and all these all these films back then. But with the house music, all this stopped. It carried on with hip hop,
Yeah.
with like dance battles, but with house, when ecstasy came and it became more like a more popular thing, it completely changes. But again, coming back to what house was all about, it was not about individuality. It was all about the togetherness.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was bound not to have dancers in the center doing their moves. And the funny thing is, when we first went to DJ in New York, when I first met Carl Cox, the first time I met Carl was in New York, and then there was a winter music conference back then, and all the DJs were kind of meeting, there, and we were playing in several different clubs in New York. And what was the big difference between America and the rest of the world, as we knew it, little ravers? There were still dance battles in house techno clubs in America, and we thought it was really odd. And I remember playing at it was the Lamplight or places like that, and playing techno, and these guys were doing all the moves and stopping to dance and having guys in the center, and we thought, this belongs to the old age, mate. It was very strange, and yeah, it completely changed with house and techno. It's true.
It must be amazing for you to be able to just look back and think, I've lived through this. I've actually witnessed this evolution firsthand, and not only witnessed it, but been involved in it and being like part of this whole thing moving forward.
Well, I've always wanted to be involved in it, and the funny thing is, I lived in England until summer '88 when I got called by the army. So I missed the first summer of love. So I went back to France. I was DJing at Hacienda, and we switched from Zumba night to hot. We did one hot night, which was Wednesday night. And when I played at the very first hot night, I felt something had switched completely. I mean, first the crowd was different. We actually took off all the hip hop records or disco records from our record boxes, and there was only acid house and house music, and we were playing house music all night, where 3 months before we were not.
Yeah.
And the vibe in the room was just completely fucking mental. And you think, okay, it's summer, there's a little swimming pools in the club, so they just go mad. But then when you realize afterwards, what went on, it was very interesting. But saying that, I do the first night of hot, and I feel like the thing is about to explode. I go to France. All I hear is through the Face of ID magazine that England has gone completely mental, and I'm stuck in the army. Being able to taste it very slightly in Paris, as there were two promoters from London who came to Paris once a week doing house parties. But the big difference between England and France in England, it became popular very quickly.
Mhm.
Where in France, it was a gay thing for a long time before it started to become popular. So you switch from a predominantly first black night to predominantly white suburban crazy kids taking drugs and going fucking mental, to go back to Paris to a different crowd where it's mainly guys, gays, very open-minded, but like really good fun, but in a very different way.
Yeah.
And it's like small. It's my, you know, it's very small because it's only in Paris. I do that for 1 year, and then I get back to Manchester a year after, and then you feel like the bomb has completely exploded. It's Hiroshima in England. The whole thing went like this. Everybody's into this music. Where in France, it's still a tiny little scene. And I felt when I got back to England after a year of army, I felt I missed the train. I totally missed the train, and I really felt like I would had to run after the train to jump on it again. And I thought, no, I don't want that. So I thought, I'm going back for good to France, and I'm going to make it there. So I always wanted to be involved in the thing, always, because from day one, when I heard house music, that's what I said at the beginning of the documentary. It made a lot of sense to me because it was the essence of everything I loved. So that music was the music I was waiting for. That's what I say at the beginning, but it's so true. It's so true.
I think it's really, really amazing. And I think a lot of us in this industry have gone through similar things, that you had that period when you were in the army, but you were going and DJing like 5 nights a week. And like you say, you didn't sleep for a year. And I think there's a lot of us that can say that too. But I
remember it compared to the people who went to rave. They say, oh yeah, 1988, oh, it's all a blur. For me, it wasn't a blur because I had to work at 8 in the morning, so it was clear. I mean, you know, I was tired, but not tired from taking too many years. Okay, so I lived a different summer of the love. You know,
where did you find the energy to do that? I mean, obviously, like you have youth on your side, but there's also, I'm sure there was this just driving passion to just be involved, right?
It's funny because as long as I remember, since the age of 8, 10, the idea of playing music in front of a dance floor and have a crowd dancing was my biggest dream. So once you taste it, and Lenny D says it beautifully, he says in the document, once you taste this drug once, that's it. And no, it is really a kid's dream for me to be a DJ or to play music, not to play to a huge crowd. It's more like to be able to play music and make people move, have this power through music to, you know, shake other people's body. I don't know. It was something I always wanted to do, and I was obsessed because my brother is 6 years older than me. I was obsessed with the clubs he was going when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I was obsessed with any magazine who was talking about clubs. I would you know, cut the image and put it in my room. I was really obsessed by clubs, and I'm a club kid more than a rave kid or anything. I'm a proper club person, and I still am now. And yeah, once I got there, I got to do that in one of the best clubs in the world, with a wonderful team, such as, you know, the people in Manchester at the Hacienda, and then after that in Paris, in a place called Le Palace, which is the Palace was my biggest hope, my biggest dream when I was a kid, because Le Palace was the most well-known club in Paris.
Yeah.
And whenever they were talking about anything to do with club culture, they were talking about Le Palace in Paris. So when I started DJing there, I went to La Mecca. You know, I went to the best place. So yeah, I that kind of kept me awake. Believe me. I had to go for it.
One of the things that really strikes me, not just from the documentary, but witnessing you play in like, you know, firsthand, is the passion and the energy, the physical energy that you give to your performances. And I'm going to tell you a story about, I saw you play in Amsterdam and I was behind you in the booth. And being in Amsterdam, I was a little bit high. And I was like really, really focused on what you were doing with the CDJs. And it was blowing my mind because you were like looping things and like almost like using the CDJs like instruments. And I haven't seen that very often with very many DJs. And I just wanted to ask you like where that comes from, that sort of ingenuity to sort of not just use them for transitions, but actually, you know, use them as instruments too.
It's funny because I know there's a big debate about should we play on vinyl or whatever. I love vinyl. As you can see, there's a bit of vinyl here.
Just a little
I
bit.
always love vinyl, but for me, the most important thing is the music. I need the music first before the vinyl. If that makes any sense. And I must admit that playing with a CDJ with a USB, not a CD, because I started with a CD and then I went in USB stick. Those tools are, for me, my best tools to be able to express myself. I love vinyl, but with vinyl, you can't redefine. I'm not saying unstructured. I'm just saying choose moments in the record, a bit like a hip hop DJ would do, where he would just mix, you know, the break all the time and making it much longer so the guys can rap. In the same way, there's some parts, of course, you know, because it's always somebody, I always play other people's music. So there's always parts I like best and I like to play with them. And I think the CDJs and all this setup for me suits my DJing the best. So yeah, I feel very good with all that, and I like long mixes. I like when it's really smooth, because I like playing all sorts of different kind of music. But I think a night should be like a roller coaster. You need to go up, you need to go, but you really need to go down as well.
Yeah.
You know, for me, a full night of bang on techno is boring, as much as a full night of vocal garage is boring. What's good is a night with vocal garage and techno. That's when it starts making sense. It's like food, you know. It's like food. You wouldn't eat chicken every day, and you wouldn't eat the same fish every day. And you know, it's just the little differences that makes the story more. There's more core, more body to the story. And what I like doing is when I mix is trying to really change the pulse and change the music and the intensity, but for people not to really hear it. I'm trying to make it as smooth as I can. But saying that, sometimes I like power as well. You know, I like to pinpoint a moment and then making it much louder. I guess it's like when you mix a track. You know, you choose sometimes what's going to be loud, what's going to be not as loud, but they all need to be stuck together and, you know, feel compact. But yeah, I like interfering with the records. But saying that, sometimes I like playing 15 minutes without touching it.
Yeah.
I think DJ is always a matter of the moment.
Yes.
For me, all about the moment. Watching your crowd, understanding the sound system where you are, knowing the time, and judging how tight the crowd can be, how late it can be, how early it is. Where should we be by now? You know, level wise of intensity and stuff. Am I actually bored with the records I'm playing? And sometimes I feel, oh, I've been playing too long of this type of music. I need to switch because if I'm getting bored, they're gonna get as bored as I am. So, it's always kind of looking and questioning yourself and trying to find the moment, or trying to find the gap where you can just go in and get into people's head and basically fuck them up. The idea, for me, the idea is to find the moment where you can play the right track at the right moment.
Yeah. So
people can go home and 5 years after say, I saw you on that night and I remember you when you played blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
It was a magical moment. And I think this is what we should all do. We should all search for that moment where we are able to switch, go somewhere else, surprise, take risks, so people can notice it. I think that's very, very important. Very important. Tonight I'm starting my set with this track. If ever I do it, which is very rare, because even sometimes I'm like so sure I want to start with this track, I would put that track, and then I would prepare another two. And I know 90% out of 100, I'll play one of the other two. Because it's not the moment.
Yeah.
Okay? But sometimes I'm forcing myself because I've decided and I'm going to do it. And then you play and then it completely goes flat. So you can never, ever pre do your set before or prepare your set. So it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I mean, you can prepare energy. You can prepare a set that rises in energy and stuff. But the magical moments, no. It's just, I feel like I should play this now.
Yes.
I'm sure. Let's try it.
Yeah.
And when the thing, I always picture it as like a flat thing, and the flat thing turns around like this. Just, you know what I mean? It's like, welcome to a different world.
Yeah.
And usually when you get to that point, after, you've got people on a tray.
Yeah, man.
You carry them on a tray.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting feeling.
It's and it's a beautiful thing, and it's quite an intimate relationship that you can build with the crowd as well, and with yourself, because you can surprise yourself, because inspiration will come and you go, oh wow, okay, let's go that way.
Yeah, and sometimes, you carry, I've been carrying records for years without playing them, and then one night, you don't know why, it's the moment, and you play it. But then the week after you go, oh, I should play it again. Then you play it, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about nightclubs and what's been going on over the past year and a bit. Because
it hasn't been going on very much, has it?
Well, exactly.
What's been going on in a year and a half?
Everything else has been going on, but that hasn't been going on. But you wrote a letter, and I just wanted to try and understand what your motivation was for the letter, and then the response that you've kind of had to the letter too.
We felt that over the past 20 years, especially in France, as we had some political help at some point for things to move forward. I mean, you have to understand, we're talking briefly about this in a documentary, but England is a musical country. You grew up with Top of the Pops. You guys grow up with music. It's part of your DNA. France is not like that at all. A lot of the music is seen as something you should sometimes be careful from. Any kind of music. It's getting better, but when house and techno arrived, the hostility, it's been very hostile.
Hostility,
the hostility was very, very tough. First from the government, the press, and the police, and whatever, and as well from the music people in France, but more the rock and roll side of the music, who saw techno music as like either a disease or a danger to their own music. So it was extremely hostile, and I felt that we had to fight very hard to get to where we are. And the funny thing is, since year 2000, when I meet a lot of youngsters, my argument was, you guys, you come in a time now in 2000 and onwards, you come in a time where we feel that all the battles have been won. So it must be different for you because you don't have these battles to fight for. And I think fighting for something has helped us as well, helped the French scene to be very, very stuck together, very together. And even though we were not listening or defending exactly the same kind of music, we felt there was a connection.
Yeah.
And after that, from 2000 onwards, it kind of split up to little community of people making different kinds of music, but not really listening to other community. It was different. But then again, it's the arrival of mobile phones and all social media. So it's much bigger than just the fact of 2000. Okay. And until COVID started, I felt that things were healthy in France. We basically won all the battles we wanted. And when COVID arrived, and we find out after hearing the what's it called, the cultural minister in France, and hearing the press, hearing the politicians, where the word club culture, DJs, but especially clubs, the word completely disappeared from everywhere. We couldn't. Nobody was using these words. So club culture was not existing anymore. They were talking about artists, cinema. They were talking about theaters. They were talking about restaurants that were closed. But clubs, it's like as if they were not existing anymore. So we kind of went, excuse me, we're here. And the actual minister, the cultural minister, said, clubs doesn't belong to the cultural minister. They belong to the ministère de l'Intérieur, the interior minister.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Interior minister.
Yeah.
How do you call it? Le ministère de l'Intérieur.
Yeah, that's it. The interior minister. Yeah.
And we went, what? So basically, we are not considered as artists for you. And they actually went, no, you guys from clubs and all the people around the clubs, you are not into the culture world. So it triggered a lot of shit here. And I felt that as much as we did 10 foot forward in 20 years, I felt like we did 30 foot backwards.
Yeah, man.
Because of COVID. So I had to write a letter to the Prime Minister to say, am I a dead artist? Am I an alive artist? Or am I an artist at all? I'd like to understand. And the second thing is, I would love to understand, why did you give me a Legion of Honor? Because if it's not for my art and for me DJing outside of France and kind of representing my country, outside of France, why did I get it for? You guys need to get your shit together. And there's been a lot of political discussions and stuff for the last year and a half. And there's been a lot of solidarity coming out of that, where they are trying very hard to all the clubs, but the clubs as we know it, not there's clubs and clubs, that. Yeah. And that's the difficulty of everything. There's the clubs where they have DJs coming from everywhere. They're programming people, so they're helping the scene. And then there's other clubs which they are on the seaside and they play the same records over and over again, and they're a bit different.
Yeah.
So, but saying that, there's been a lot of solidarity between the clubs as we know it, who try to get together and make actions, talk to politicians to make things move forward, to be treated as artists, because we truly believe we are artists. I don't see why I am less an artist as a DJ or making techno music than a singer or than a performer, than a dancer in a ballet. I don't see why I'm less of an artist. I don't understand. So yes, it's been a lot of talk during COVID.
It's almost in a lot of places in the world, and the UK too. Even though we have music in our DNA, there's still this stigma that's attached to club culture, to DJs, to techno, to house, etc. it feels like there's still this stigma attached, which is kind of like that undervalues it and compare, and you know, if you compare it to like classical music, you know, people place so much more cultural value on classical music compared to what we do. And it feels like it's just this perpetual battle, and it's always there in the background, no matter how, you know.
It's there, but when it's alive, it's okay. We get on with it, and we get on with our lives, and we go to clubs, and we know the community is there. We know we are there for each other, and we're alive. But when everything stops and everybody else around you is screaming and shouting and say, hey, we're here, we want this, we want that. And we try to do the same, but we disappear completely.
Yeah.
It feels tough. So yeah, I had to write that letter because I thought that we did win a lot of battles, but obviously after COVID, I can say now, I think we didn't win that many, because I think we kind of went back into prehistorical, you know,
yeah,
like not very nice time. But we'll see where this is going.
Well, do you know, there's a really big moment in the documentary where the techno parade takes place in Paris, and it's such a wonderful moment because it's like literally in one of the most famous landmarks in Paris. There's this techno parade happening, and it's like amazing. And I love
where's the king? Shall we chop his head off?
But I love the footage of you as well, like the old news footage where you're just like, I can just see like the passion coming out of you, like this young Laurent, just like.
We were all like that. We really felt that we won a lot of battles on that day. But it's actually interesting to have finished the film just as COVID started, just before the first confinement, and watching it a year and a half after with Black Lives Matter, with all this shit going on with the politics in France and techno and the club worlds and stuff, thinking, oh my God, okay, there's still a lot to do. You know, it's funny how I feel this documentary is very linked with what happened as well during COVID. And there's a lot to say now since we've had a year and a half of COVID. You know, I mean, we slightly talk about a Detroit community, you know, the guys who made music over there, and how a lot of them were making music a bit to survive because it was a very tough city and stuff. And then 3 months after, you get the Black Lives Matter happening, and you think, oh my God, we are so zeitgeist. You know, it's very together. Yeah, we'll see where this is going.
How important is it to you as someone who's so intrinsically involved with techno to kind of demonstrate to people, to remind people of its roots too, you know, because you know, the documentary does it very well. I think it talks about that timeline as I've already discussed, but you know, for you, like on a personal creative artist level, you know, how important is it to you to kind of keep that?
It's funny you ask me that, because I had my friend DJ Deep over in my house last week, and Deep has for him, it's so important that a kid should know the history of music before he plays music, that it's kind of destabilizing me. He's so into that. And it's funny because my son started to DJ a little bit, okay?
He's
17 years old. And I let him choose the music he plays. And I actually love the music he plays, but I let him choose everything. And Deep came, and he's known my son since he's a baby, okay? And he said to my son, I'll give you a USB stick. And he did this USB stick of thousands of tracks with Masters at Works, Todd Terry, blah, 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 blah. And he gave it to him, and he said, once you know this, you can do it. And I said to Jeep, it's not important, mate. It's not, I mean, you'll get into it one day. It's like me when I started DJing, I had a little bit of knowledge of disco, a little bit of knowledge of this and that, but I didn't know anything about jazz like I know now. And it took me years because there's so much music to know about. And what is the good history? And what should you know? You know, what is the thing we should know about before we even start playing a record?
Yeah.
The fun thing is you should always be in exchange with people. So if I'm in the car with my son and he plays me a track, if it reminds me of something, I will say, oh, it reminds me of that track from Masters of Works. And then I'll play it to him. And then I see how he reacts to it. And usually he takes it and then he hears it the day after, I can listen to what he plays upstairs. So I like that way of exchange. For me, it's always an exchange. It's you don't have to force feed somebody with history, because I don't feel like it's the right way. I mean, I love DJ Deep for that, because he's so into that, and he's, last week he said to me, "Oh, I don't understand these young DJs who they don't know the story of it all, and they should know. And before they play a record that sounds like Todd Terry, they need to know who the king is, who Todd Terry is." And I'm like, who gives a shit, Cyril? It doesn't matter, If they play funky shit today and it sounds Todd Terry to you, and if it sounds good to them, don't worry, they'll get to Todd Terry one day. They will. If they have this sensitivity, that they will get to it. Don't worry about that. I mean, I think history is important, of course. And our task as DJs is to always search and learn more. But there's so much music that you can't start with all the baggage. It's impossible. When I start DJing at Hacienda, I knew little about disco, little about hip hop, little about this. But I knew enough to be able to get by and play music, and then by talking to Mike Pickering, talking to John Silva, talking to all these guys who were super passionate about music. Well, I've listened to hundreds and thousands of new records.
Yeah.
When I'm DJing, I don't like to feel like an old jukebox. So I'm trying to avoid to play too many classics. Of course, there's classics that are very Laurent Garnier and my little Donna Summer and stuff like that, but I don't play them all the time.
Yeah.
Really. I'm very careful when I play them. And usually, for me, when I play these records, they're like the cherry on top of the cake.
Sure.
We've had a wonderful moment. And you know what? Now it's time. Let's play a little classic that we all know. We can sing along and maybe say I Feel Love or play Joe Smooth, Promised Land or stuff like that, because it belongs to our history.
Yeah.
It's not a problem for me to play them. And I think it's nice as well. It's nice to be able to whistle to a song and know exactly the words, and you've heard it 100 times, but it still feels as wonderful when you hear it now. I like doing it once in a while, but not like a teacher. And I really don't want to be a teacher of anything. And it's true, when I'm DJing, I'm always trying to play as much new stuff as I can, because I feel today there's so much good stuff in every single different field genres of music. There's amazing deep house, there's amazing soulful vocal house, there's amazing raw as fuck Chicago, jacking stuff. There's amazing deep techno, Detroit-ish techno, which is maybe not made in Detroit anymore, but Detroit techno. There's amazing banging techno. So there's good music everywhere, and it would be a shame to stop yourself by just saying, "Oh, these were stronger records," or "These were the originators, so I keep on playing this." It's a bit like, I feel jazz at one point closed itself. After the free movement. And then when Miles or Coltrane died, a lot of people said, "Oh, jazz is not the same," and they kind of stopped jazz where it was, where jazz carried on. Jazz always carried on. Rock and roll didn't stop with the Rolling Stones. Rock and roll went on. Even the Stones are still here, but rock and roll went on, and there's a lot of great new bands we should listen to. Of course, there's a lot of reference from records we heard before, of course. But yeah, history is important, but it's not the main thing. You know, I listen to a lot of hip hop nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Especially French hip hop, which I've never listened to before.
Oh wow.
And my son has been playing me a lot of new drill. Basically, they're all into drill and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the way the young French rappers today are changing things in hip hop, in French hip hop, it's really amazing. And I know all these kids, they don't want to know anything about old school hip hop. But maybe the fact that they didn't want to know anything about old school hip hop perhaps brought them to this unique sound they're doing now. And I'm sure within 10 years' time, if they carry on, they'll get back to the history of hip hop because they can't avoid it. They can't avoid it.
That's it. I mean, like, you know, you're part of a timeline, and at some point or another, especially if you're a DJ or an artist, you're going to want to look back at some point. But you don't necessarily have to be forced to. I was talking to someone the other day who's a party person, and I just said to her, like, you know, who are some of the DJs that you like to go and see? She was like, I don't really follow the names. I just, like, you know, if my friends say that this is going to be a good party, I go to the party and I enjoy myself. And she almost apologized for it. And I was like, you don't have to apologize for that. Like, have a good time. This is what we're all trying to do, right? You don't have to be a train spotter for DJs. Like, that's not me.
Of course. And you know, I know very well that a lot of the younger generation today don't even know who I am, and it makes sense. I'm 55 years old, man. Their own generation. So unless they perhaps come with friends to a party and they like what I play, it's totally normal that they won't want to listen to me first. They would go to Peggy Goo or somebody even younger. Yeah. It makes sense. It makes complete sense. It's normal. But then again, my task is to not to play the music from before, is to, you know, play the music from now, because I feel very related to this music, and I still feel completely in phase with the music that's coming out now. If the music would change and I would get to a point where I'm not in phase anymore, I would rather stop DJing than carry on and play all records.
Wow.
Really?
Fair enough, man.
Really. I need to be excited. So I need to be, how can I say? I you know, I see myself like a windmill, and you know, it needs to turn around all the time, because otherwise the engine gets rusty. And if I don't get new music, if I don't get excited by new things, I'll get rusty. And so it would be time for me to stop. And because there's still amazing music nowadays to be played, so I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy.
Amazing, man. Given how long you've been around and the experiences that you've had, if your son was to start becoming a professional DJ, what advice would you give to him, given what you've experienced yourself?
I would say don't. First, I would say don't tell them who your father is, because it will hurt you more than help you.
Yeah, totally, man.
Definitely. It will definitely hurt him more than help him. I mean, we all seen the amount of son of such and such actor or whatever, son of blah blah, and you know, it's difficult for them. So
a lot of pressure.
I would really say, I would really advise to him, you know, do your thing, but you know, don't. If you have to say it, just say it to the person, but don't make it something thinking that is going to help you, because it will not help you. It will hurt you for sure. And then I keep telling him, have fun, man. Play what you want. Play what you like. Only play what you like. And we actually played together last Wednesday. We did like a little drink. I mean, I live in a really countryside, deep countryside, and then we have hills over here, and then there's a place here where the farmers grow lavender, and it's on top of the hill. Nice. It's really beautiful. So we usually bring a sound system up there for like 20-25 of us. And
no way.
food and we DJ, and it's like 5 or 6 of us DJing and stuff.
Wow.
And then my son did a little set, and he was really, really stressed. And I said, man, play the music you love, because if you like what you play, people will feel it and they will understand it.
Yeah,
You
man.
don't play for the crowd. You play with the crowd, not for the, you play with them. But then the most important thing is you play the music you love. And if people see what you do and listen to what you do, if you love what you do, you'll give them a stronger feelings and stronger emotions. And he played really, really cool tracks, and everybody came up to me and said, fuck yeah, he's playing really well. I'm like, yes, I know he's got his own thing. And I keep saying, because if you really play what you love, you will show your real personality in what you do. And I think that's what people really respect you for. If you play one song for me and one song for your mom and one song for that person, one song for that person, it will be weird. It's not going to make sense. You have to play with the people, for the people, but then again, it's you as well. You really need to be involved in what you're doing, and I want to see you vibrate with what you play.
Yeah.
Okay? Mixing is okay. It's good to mix well, but I want to see you vibrate. And
at the end of the documentary, I hope I'm not spoiling it, but there's the lovely scene of the records being transported by this chain of friends and family, I'm assuming, onto the back of the tractor. And obviously now looking at where you are, I know where the records have gone. Wow.
Same here. Okay. This is the records.
And so was it a smooth transition? Because I remember there's the scene where you're talking to the architect and you're talking about like how many like meters of funk there is, and like
the architect, we calculated not that well, because there was 15 meter long missing. So
no.
I had to, there's a door there, and then behind there's like a small room where I was supposed to stack some keyboards and stuff. It's full of fucking records. There was 15 meters left, and 15 meters is a lot. 15 long of records is a lot. So yeah, the problem is, in the house I was living before, the record collection was in 5 different rooms. But some of them were still in boxes because I didn't have enough space.
Wow.
So here we actually calculated the room I could come in for my studio to be able to put all the records, and they're all here. Everything is here and behind this door, but it's all part of that. It's all kind of part of that room. But this idea came while we were doing the documentary, because when I started working on a documentary, we hadn't even found the house where I'm living now.
Oh, wow.
So we got this house and we did a lot of work to it, because it was a very old house. And it was Gabin's idea. Gabin said,
brilliant.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to end up the documentary with this truck and all your record collection moving from one house to the other? He said to me, it's such a beautiful ending. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. And I said, but the problem is, who's going to carry all these fucking boxes? And we'll ask all the friends. So all the people you see, they're all our close friends from here.
It's such a lovely scene, man.
We did a big day carrying the records, and then we had a big lunch together. It was really good fun.
Brilliant. And how does it feel for you to be sat in this room surrounded by all your music now, man?
Funny, because I moved here just after the first confinement. So I've been forbidden from clubs for a year and a half. And I've never made as much music than what I've done for the last year and a half.
Amazing.
I first, the funny thing is, at the beginning, I couldn't listen to techno at the beginning of the first conference.
Yeah, I know the same thing happened to me, man.
I couldn't see the light forward. And for me, techno has always been the music of the future. And as our future was very grim, it didn't make sense. So I kind of went back into French songs, rock and roll, and stuff I knew, stuff I felt comfortable with, disco and soul. And this is when I started working on a pop rock album with a psychedelic band.
Oh, nice.
So we did an album, and it's coming out in 2 weeks, actually, in France.
Brilliant.
A full album. Then after that, I made music for a movie. So I did like 18 tracks for a movie. So that took a few months. And then now I've got a full album done as well for me. I've got like 4 tracks. I've got a lot of music done. So at the moment when I'm DJing, I'm trying all my new tracks. So it's cool. So yeah, I've never made so much music. And so after a year of spending mostly all my time here, I think it's been it's been helping me. I think it's been very reassuring to have all this around me. You know,
I'm very excited to hear that you've got a solo album on the way.
Yes. Might be on Code QR. I think there's going to be a few 12-inch on Code QR very soon.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
But yeah, having all this here feels homely, reassuring, very reassuring. Like I'm in my own environment, because you know a record collection is a very, very private thing.
Yes.
It's not just about what you have, it's the way you classify things. I think that's the most important thing. And having, for the first time, having them all here in the way I've always classified my music, but all in one room, finally feels like, okay, that's my room. It's my room, and if somebody comes and check the record collection, he might not get it all, because perhaps my way of classifying things might sound odd to him. Again, DJ Deep came last week, and you know, of course, we started digging some stuff, and he went, "Very strange how you classify things." And I'm like, I think your classification is strange. I think it's good. It's good to have this here.
Just to finish up, I'm really intrigued as to know, you've been basically obsessed with music and clubs since you were very, very young, like going back to the family business when you were a child. What does music give to you? Like, you know, day to day throughout your life, what has it given to you that makes it such a presence in your life?
It fulfills my life. It gives me joy, it gives me sadness, gives me, I'm trying to find the right words. It really fulfills me with tons of different emotions, and different music gives me different satisfaction or feelings, you know, to a level where music is my best friend in a way. Yeah, it is. And I'm very careful about them, you know, but I mean, I care very much about the music. And I think the best representation of what I love would be, I don't know if you know, I have this little radio station called PBB.
Yeah.
You know PBB?
Yeah.
Basically, the funny thing is I guess I did it for me. I did PBB for me, because I like listening to all sorts of different things when I'm driving my car and stuff. And now, you know, because of Bluetooth, you can listen to it through your phone. And the funny thing is I keep on Shazamming myself all the time. Everything I put on PBB is going, of course, through me, because I put it myself into the radio station. The program is here, so I run it from here. And now there's 25,000 tracks in it. And of course, I forget a lot of stuff, and I keep on with my phone. Look at this. And I Shazam myself. So it's like a vicious circle where I mean, what I like about music is it's the fact that it gives you all different range of kinds of emotion.
Yeah.
Nostalgia and just all sorts of stuff. You want to think of somebody or something or somewhere, there's usually a record or a track which is linked to that place. Usually, if you have a lot of music around you, very often it's, you know, it's linked with a record or with some tracks. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful that it's like smells, you know, they never go away. You smell something, and then 20 years after, somebody walk past and you, oh, it reminds me of that person.
Yes.
And music is exactly the same. It's like an instant reminder of a situation, a moment, a feeling, something. And it's really magic. It's very, very magical. Very magical.
On that note, I think that's a great place to finish. But I wanted to say big thank you to you for everything that you've given back to music.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And let's carry on. Let's carry on.
Indeed. Thank you, Laura.
It's been a pleasure, Marcus. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Likewise.